What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? NoZoupForYou here, and after what seems to have been eons without any news about submarines, out of nowhere, Wargaming dropped some huge news regarding them. So I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover some super battleships, and then there's some other news regarding aircraft carriers, which will be of interest. So all this news dropped last week, though. I know a lot of you don't follow the development blog, so if you don't, this will be new news to you, and it's all, for the most part, good news. So I'm just going to walk you through all of the news, let you know what's going on, and my thoughts on it. So first and foremost, submarines. You know, submarines have been being tested for, wow, how long? Since the announcement in summer 2019, according to World of Warships. So, you know, we're looking at 2 years ago, and we've had 3 tests since then. And players are wondering, are they coming or are they not coming? Has Wargaming put them on the back burner? What's going on with them? So, credit to Wargaming, they're still testing the hell out of them, making sure these things are perfect before they put them in game, and it still remains to be seen whether or not submarines are going to wind up in actual random battles or tourney type modes or ranked. It's still up in the air, and I think they themselves are still trying to decide as well whether or not submarines have a place in the entire game in any mode or just limited mode. So some of the changes that they've made through testing and just player feedback involve some of the mechanics. The oxygen meter has been replaced by a battery charge, and I mean, I guess that's kind of tit for tat right there. In a way, they're kind of the same thing. I mean, I know they're not the same thing, but I know a lot of players got frustrated with the oxygen meter. The battery charge, though, is going to really alter the way that these submarines play. Sonar ping has been updated. Anti-submarine warfare capabilities have been added to a number of battleships and cruisers, which is good. You won't feel so helpless. And the diving mechanics overall have been changed. So what do these changes absolutely mean? Well, with the oxygen, you had to surface every now and then to replenish your oxygen, and then you could go back on your merry way. With the batteries, though, things are changing so that you only have a certain amount of battery life in your submarine. And once that battery depletes, you can't submerge anymore. Meaning, if you decide to stay underwater for the first half of the round and just try to be sneaky, the second half of the round, you're going to be stuck on the surface. So that adds a huge challenge to submarine players, and kind of, in my opinion, a welcome one. That means that submarines can't hide in perpetuity under the water. I know one of the biggest gripes about aircraft carriers right now, obviously the fact that you have an unlimited supply of aircraft. Almost. This kind of eliminates that issue with submarines. So, a nice addition right there. Also, the submarine is detected. The charge of the battery is expended faster. And when your battery is depleted, you have to surface. You can't go underwater anymore. Detectability of the submarines now decreases linearly with depth. So as you're diving, your detectability decreases, and once you're underwater, it decreases, and then the deeper you go, the more your detectability disappears. An underwater environment has been created on most maps, and I've seen photos of these, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Wargaming has done a lot of work with these, so it'll be interesting seeing that in play and seeing how the difference looks over the water as opposed to under the water, because I know a lot of these maps have they've got like coral reefs and everything else, and obviously a submarine's not going to be able to go there where a battleship or a cruiser or anything else is. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes into play and how Wargaming has worked that, and very exciting. There's a skill tree for submarines, which has been added, so that's a very necessary thing, something that has to be thought about. So that's going to change captain skills around for that. And then there's a new type of torpedo for submarines as well. They haven't released anything on that. It's going to come later. So the next step, according to them, is another sandbox test. More testing, that's a good thing. I have no problem with that. And then they'll appear in a public test in a future update. And then after that, they're going to add submarine battles, similar to what they had in update 0.9.4. And from there, who knows? Maybe they'll get added to the game, maybe not. So, moving on to another event coming up, Super Battleships. This summer, Wargaming is going to do some what-if type of stuff using the Satsuma, which is a battleship based on the Yamato with main guns that are 510 millimeters. Good God. And then the Hanover, a version of the Project H-42, which has 483 millimeter guns. So, these aren't coming to tech trees, fortunately. These aren't going to be ships that you can permanently keep. I imagine that from what Wargaming is saying, these are going to be similar in a way to, if any of you all remembers the Salem witchcraft, well, it wouldn't be witchcraft, but the Salem witch, that Halloween event where you had one Salem versus a bunch of tier 4s and 5s. I think this is pretty much what's going to be. It's going to be very similar to that. And for those of you that remember that event, it was very fun, especially if you're in the Salem, just pretty much seal clubbing a bunch of lower tier ships. But that is how this is going to work, Super Battleships, and Wargaming is releasing more information on that, so stay tuned to that. Could be a very fun event. I mean, we've had some good events coming our way from Wargaming, so I gotta give them props for that as well. It's always nice when you get things that change up the scenery, things that are not ranked gameplay. And this brings us to the last big change, and this is a very, very important one, which I think a lot of destroyer captains are going to like. This involves attack aircraft. So this is what Wargaming has said, and this is verbatim. We plan to improve the interaction between ships and attack aircraft of aircraft carriers. As a result, the rocket launch mechanics will be updated. Now, before launching rockets, attack aircraft will fire machine guns in the direction of the subsequent rocket launch. At this moment, it's planned that machine guns won't cause damage to ships, but it will simply indicate where the rockets will land. That is huge if you're a destroyer. That basically telegraphs where those rockets are going to go, and it gives you a better chance to avoid them. Now, I know that doesn't help midway dive bombers, which are, I mean, those are probably larger nuisance to destroyer players. I know I'd rather face rocket planes than midway dive bombers, but this is a step in the right direction. It's a good start, and goes on to say information about the location of rocket hits along with increased attack time will allow commanders of maneuverable ships such as destroyers to react in time to the enemy rockets, determine the location of the upcoming hit, and engage in evasive maneuvers, reducing the possible damage. Public tests of this mechanic will take place in the near future. Follow the news, participate testing, and leave your feedback. And then, of course, it just gives a disclaimer. Final information will be published on our game's website, blah, 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 blah. So, huge changes for attacked aircraft. And I know many destroyer players feel helpless against rocket attacks. It's not fun sometimes, especially when you're low health. In the late stages of the game, it becomes very, very tricky. This will allow players a little more time, though time will tell if this is a step too far in one direction. I know rockets, in my opinion, really have an odd purpose in the game. I mean, it seems like they're used specifically against aircraft, or destroyers, unless you're a German armor-piercing rocket plane, which they're very effective against cruisers. And I would imagine that those are also going to have the same thing, the strafe beforehand, followed by the rocket launch. But time will tell whether or not that it's too much and players have too much time to maneuver, because the last thing you want is for CVs to be completely neutered. And I know some of you out there probably welcome that openly. Personally, I think we need to find a fine line of balance. I do think that destroyers of all the ships out there should have a better chance of maneuvering away from rocket planes. They should be able to, because they're small, they should be hard to hit, and I really think that we need to see the same thing happen to dive bombers. And actually, I think dive bombers should really not be able to hit destroyers at all. I mean, it should be one of those things where it takes a ton of skill and it's very hard to do. Those are changes I'd implement if it were me, and I know a lot of destroyer players would welcome that as well. But once again, this is a step in the right direction, and it shows that Wargaming is taking feedback. Again, though, it takes them a long time to implement these changes, and that's the only problem. I wish they could do on-the-fly tweaks. I've said this before. I think it would help a lot. But once again, letting players know where the rockets are going to fall before they're fired will go a long way to help destroyer players. I just don't know if it's too much and too easy mode for destroyers at this point, because you got to have some skill. You got to have some ability to leave it up to the player to decide. So we'll see. I welcome it for now, though. Want to know your opinions. What do you think of all of this? What do you make of submarines, super battleships, and of course the changes to attack aircraft? Let me know in the comments of this video. Greatly appreciate it. I hope you all are doing wonderful. If you have not subscribed yet, if you're a longtime follower and haven't, be sure to do that. Hit that notification button so you know when the videos are released. And drop a like if you can. Let's see if we can get this up to 500 likes. That's the goal for this video. And I will catch you all later. I hope you're doing wonderful. Zoop out.